Okay, so let's start. I'll share my screen. Let me know if you can't see this. If you're in trouble in seeing this, let me know. Okay, so I'm just showing you a blank white screen. Um, I hope everybody can see this. If anybody have any trouble, please unmute your mic and let me know whether you have any trouble in seeing the screen. Fine. Okay. I hope everybody can hear me also. So we are continuing with our class EC 469 optoelectronic devices. And today we are going to start with module number 2. Basically, it is about lasers. So in this lecture, we are going to look at laser basics. Okay, and we are going to derive an expression for the thresholding gain in lasers. Okay, fine. So as you might have studied in your lower semesters, a laser, the full form is light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So that is called as a laser. Okay, so there's an amplification happening to the light, which is done by some kind of a stimulated emission, and that stimulated emission is caused by a radiation. So that is something called as a laser. So the person who had discovered or invented the laser has got his Nobel Prize way back in 1930s or something. Okay, and laser is not for any particular semiconductor. It can be done. The lasing action can be done for any from any atom. Okay, so you don't want to consider this can be done only through a semiconductor. Okay, fine. Let's see some of the properties of laser. The first and important property is it is monochromatic. Monochromatic means it has, like, it is confined to a narrow range of wavelength, or maybe like single wavelength. So I represent wavelength as lambda. The visible light is not monochromatic because it has different colors, and different colors have different wavelengths. So you can say the visible light is not monochromatic. But if you take a single color, let's say red, so that has a particular range of wavelength, and it is a very, very narrow range. That is called as a monochromatic radiation or light. Okay, laser is monochromatic, like it has a very small range of wavelength. Second part is it is coherent. So what you mean by coherent is that all emitted photons bear a constant phase relationship with each other. That means light is a wave, and the wave has some kind of a phase. For example, I can plot a wave like this. Okay. Now, if I plot a different wave, something like this, okay, then we say that they are out of phase by 180 degree. Okay, but in a laser, all the laser beam emitter will have the same phase, something like this. So there will be multiple photons emitted, and all the photons will bear a single phase. So this is such kind of a radiation is called as a coherent radiation. Okay, and the third one is laser is directional. Means the light beam is very strong and is concentrated. Okay, so if you have a torch and if you just shine the light using a torch, you see that it gets spread. Okay, like if your torch and you shine light, so it will get spread, and this means it is not directional. But if you have some kind of a lighting device which directly or it directs it to one particular point without having any kind of spread, so then it is called as a directional thing. It has some kind of a direction. And usually for lasers, this will have higher concentration also, means the intensity of the laser will be very high. The fourth point is it has high bandwidth. Okay, it will be on the range of let's say 200 megahertz or something. So bandwidth is basically the range of frequencies any particular system occupies. It's called as a bandwidth. Okay, so the laser occupies a good amount of bandwidth, which is around 200 megahertz. Okay, fine. Now let's go into the basics. So let's start with the spontaneous emission. Before going to simulated emission, let's start with the spontaneous emission. Now I am talking about not only about semiconductors, in general in atoms, the racing action can happen. So an atom can have multiple energy states. Let's say E1, which is a lower energy state, and E2, which is a higher energy state. Okay. An electron can jump from E1 to E2 of high energy state if it is incident with a photon of energy h nu 12. Okay, so nu 12 means it is the frequency or the energy required by the photon to jump from state E1. So E1 is a low energy state and E2 is a high energy state. So this we have studied already, right? Now this, once it is there at the top, then the electron always wants to come down to a lower energy state. So what it does, it will come down from high energy state to low energy state, emitting a photon of the same energy. So this is without external stimulation. Okay, so it will give out its energy while coming from high energy state to low energy state, and this is called as basically the spontaneous emission. The spontaneous emission will produce photons of a random phase. Means if one photon have a phase of 180 degree, the other photon will have any random phase between 0 and 360 degree. So it will not have a constant phase relation. Okay, and it is also isotropic. Means it have the same intensity in all directions. Okay, so if you go in the direction, in this direction, in this direction, in this direction, or in any direction if you go, this spontaneous emission will have the same intensity. Okay, this is spontaneous emission. Fine. So you can stop me if you have any doubts. You can unmute the mic and let me know. Fine. Now, an electron in excited state can jump to the lower state by incidenting a photon. Okay, so you give a photon, okay, and it will go from high energy state to low energy state, producing the incident photon and a new one. And these two are coherent and directional. Coherent, directional, and monochromatic. Okay. So here we are giving an external stimulation using a photon to incident on the atom. So these are all for single atoms. I'm not talking about multiple atoms. It's a single atom which has two different energy levels, E1 and E2. E2 is a high energy level, E1 is a low energy level. E2 has an electron. If you incident that atom with a photon, the electron loses its energy in the form of a radiation and comes down to the low energy state. So it will produce the new radiation along with the incident radiation. So basically you have two different radiations. Okay. Now, so the question is, if you incident an atom with a photon, what is the condition which decides whether it will be absorbed or there is a stimulated emission? Because we saw that if you incident an atom with a photon, it can give a simulated emission. That is that we have seen here. It can give a simulated emission. But we also saw in the previous part that when you incident a photon, an electron can absorb it and move to high energy state. So both these conditions are possible, this and this. So what is that which will decide whether it will give a stimulated emission or whether it will absorb the photon and move to high energy state? Okay, and that is the property called as population inversion. So if there is population inversion, then there will be stimulated emission. Otherwise, it will be a normal absorption. Okay. So what is population inversion? So let's see that. So at room temperature, without any external factors, the density of electrons at lower energy levels is higher than that of higher energy levels. That means you will have more electrons at lower energy level than at high energy level. Okay. Now let's say you pump some more energy to the system. You pump the energy, somehow you pump the energy, and the electron starts moving towards the high energy level because it is absorbing the energy and move to high energy level. And you will reach a state at which you will have more electrons, or the density of electrons at high energy level is much higher than that of low energy level. So in this condition where you have a you have lower number of electrons at lower energy level, sorry, higher number of electrons at lower energy level, then this incidenting with a photon will give a absorption. So, but if you pump energy more and more, electrons moves to high energy level, and density of electrons at high energy level will be higher than that in low energy level. Okay, and this is called as population inversion. And at this stage you will have stimulated emission. Okay, so initially you have higher number of electrons here and lower number of electrons here. Okay, now you pump energy, some kind of energy you pump, so the electrons will move from low to high. Okay, after some time the energy in high energy level, or the number of electrons or density of electrons in high energy level is higher, and in that of low energy level it is lower. And this condition is called as population inversion. And during this population inversion, you will have stimulated emission. Okay. Now, there is, what if you have, so this is regarding only one atom. Okay. So you have one atom, you have population inversion. Okay. You give one photon, the electron moves down, it produces two photons, or it produces one extra photon along with the incident photon. Now, if I direct this to another atom, which has, let's say, two electrons in high energy level. So what happens? These two photons will make the electron go down, both of them. Okay, so this two will come here, go down, the electrons moves down. It will produce 4. Okay, because there is 2 already there, 2 electrons are coming down, so it will produce extra 2. Now again I am giving it to another atom which has 4 electrons at the high energy state. So this 4 will come down because of the 4 incident photons from here, so it will produce 8. Okay, so you see that if you arrange some kind of a situation like this, then there is a gain in the medium. Means a single photon has finally produced 8 photons, and it can again multiply, or it can go exponentially. So basically there is a, if you go from here to here, there is a gain which is exponential. So if you have so many such photons, this increases the intensity of laser, right? So you have more and more photons produced, which when directed to the next atom, it produces double, again double, and again double. So basically, exponentially, it is growing, and more photons means higher and higher intensity. So this actually increases the uh, intensity. Okay, so there is some kind of an amplification mechanism happening here. Okay, fine. So now to produce this lasing action, you need to have a photons continuously moving across that material. Okay, so what we do is something called as a gain feedback mechanism. Okay, this is something like an oscillator in our circuit. Okay, so what happens is you produce a gain, more photons are produced, you give a feedback so that your photons will not increase to a beyond a level, so that the photons gets reduced, and it will finally end up having a constant amount of or constant intensity of light produced. So this is called as a gain feedback mechanism, or basically you are having some kind of an oscillation. Okay, so if there is no feedback, implies the gain produces large intensity, which will finally end up in having a broken material. The material will get damaged. Okay, and also it will also impact the population inversion, because more gain means more electrons are coming down. More electrons are coming down means more number of electrons in the higher energy states are decreasing. So it will also cause a decrease in population inversion. So we should have some kind of a mechanism in which both of them should be controlled. Okay, and the mechanism is something like this. So this is a general mechanism. So there is something called as a gain medium. Okay, fine. Now to create a population inversion, we need to pump energy. So there is a pumping mechanism, right? And you need to keep on providing photons, otherwise the lasing action will not take place. So what you do is you create a mirror at the both the sides of this cavity. Okay, so this is mirror m1, this is mirror m2. Okay, and so the photons released from the gain medium will incident the mirror, reflects back, go back to the medium. It will create an exponential growth of photons. This will be again uh, incident on the mirror. It will reflect back. Again, the gain medium will create exponential growth. Now, the gain medium doesn't mean that it only has gain. There is some kind of a loss also. So let's say I say gain is denoted as G, and there is a loss which is denoted as alpha. If there was only gain, then we don't want to have these mirrors. But the gain medium always has losses. So we need to have these mirrors to compensate for the losses of the photons. Okay. Okay. So let's write what is the mechanism. First, pump in energy. Okay. So you'll get population inversion. of electrons. Okay, then photon incidence gives stimulated emission. So you need to provide a single photon first to give this one. And so photons multiplies as traveled through gain medium. Okay, so as more and more photons are created, as it travels to the gain medium, it creates a more and more photons. Okay, now so the more electrons are coming down to the lower energy state, which means so more electrons at lower energy state, in brackets you have decrease in population inversion. Okay, so you will pump in energy again. Okay, and this cycle repeats. So the mirror is just to have a feedback, that's all. Fine. Okay, now we need to know what should be the gain of the medium. So that it will have a constant lacing action. The lacing should not be very high or should not be very low. It should have a constant lacing action. So what should be the gain, or I should say what should be the threshold gain for constant lacing action? Okay, so we are going to derive this expression. So let me draw it once again. So you have a gain medium which has a gain equal to G and loss equal to alpha. It is between two mirrors of length L, and we say the mirrors have a reflectivity of R1 and R2. Okay, so this is our situation. So L is the distance between mirrors. Fine. R1 comma R2 is equal to the reflectivity of mirrors. G is equal to the gain and alpha is equal to the loss. And alpha is mainly caused by the scattering, diffraction, etc., of this photons or the light which is being produced. Okay, so there is always some kind of a loss associated with it. Now, if you look at reflectivity, so the reflectivity is basically can define as how much amount of incident light is reflected. That is called as reflectivity. Okay, so if reflectivity is 100%, that means total reflection. There is no transmission. If the reflectivity reduces, there will be more and more transmission, and there will be lesser and less reflection. So normally we'll keep one mirror at 100% reflectivity and other mirror as less than 100% reflectivity, so that you'll have the laser coming out of the mirrors. Otherwise, it will keep back and forth. Okay, so let's not assume any of these things. I just said in general knowledge. Okay, fine. So let's start from the beginning. The gain medium produces an intensity, initial intensity I0 of the light. So I0 is equal to the initial intensity of laser. Okay, now it will strike on the mirror R1, or the mirror with reflectivity R1, and some part will be reflected. So amount of light reflected with reflectivity R1 is R1 into I0. Okay, so intensity after reflection from mirror M1. So basically this is M1, this is M2, is equal to R1 multiplied by I0. Okay, so the rest, which is I0 minus R1 I0, which is basically equal to 1 minus R1 into I0, will be transmitted from the mirror. That means it will go out of the mirror. Okay, now this R1 I0 will go inside this gain, and it will give an exponential gain. There will be an exponential gain for R1 I0. Okay, so the intensity of the light which is coming out of this gain medium, let me say this is I1 is equal to the incident intensity multiplied by e raised to g minus alpha into L. Okay, so you subtract the gain from the loss multiplied by L. The exponential of that is the net intensity which is coming out of the gain medium. Okay, fine. Now this will strike on the mirror 2, which has reflectivity R2, and some of them will be reflected back. Okay, so intensity after reflection from M2, you can write it as the reflectivity of the second mirror, which is R2, multiplied by the intensity which is incident, which is I1, because I1 is the one which is incident. So if you substitute for I1, you will get R2 into R1 into I0 e raised to g minus alpha into L. Okay, so let's say this is I3. Okay, so I3 will be coming here. Now this will again go via this gain medium, which will give you an exponential intensity. So exponential gain for I3 after M2 reflection. I can write I4 is equal to I3 into e raised to g minus alpha into L. So e raised to g minus alpha into L is the one which is actually giving the exponential gain. So I can substitute for I3 and write this as R2 R1 I0 e raised to g minus alpha into L multiplied by e raised to g minus alpha into L. So this is equal to R2 R1 I0 e raised to 2 into g minus alpha into L. Okay, now it will reach here in this point. Now we have reached the starting point because we have started from there only. So for lacing action, the condition is that the round trip intensity should be same. The round trip intensity should be same, or in general you can say whatever gain the laser has or the radiation has undergone should be equal to the loss. That means there should be no gain, there should be no loss, and this is the condition for lacing action. Or you can say when it starts from here and it moves all through the gain medium mirror 2 and comes back to here, the intensity should be same. So when wherever it has started, whatever be the intensity, that should be the same intensity when it has reached back. So I can write I4 should be is equal to I0, or I can write R2 R1 I0 e raised to 2 into G minus alpha into L should be is equal to I0. So I can cancel out I0 because it will cancel out from numerate both the sides. I'll take a logarithm on both the sides, natural logarithm, R2, R1 e raised to 2 into G minus alpha into L is equal to natural logarithm of 1. So I can write this as natural logarithm of R2, R1 plus 2 into G minus alpha into L is equal to 0. So basically we need to find out an expression for G. So I can write this as 2 into G minus alpha into L is equal to minus log natural logarithm of R1, R2. Okay. And then I can move 2L to the other side. So G minus alpha is equal to minus 1 by 2L natural logarithm of R1, R2, and move alpha to the other side. So basically, you will finally end up having the gain, the threshold gain should be is equal to alpha minus 1 by 2L ln of R1. So if your laser or the gain medium has a gain G threshold, this is called a thresholding gain. If your thresholding gain is equal to the loss minus 1 by 2L into natural logarithm of R1, R2, then you will have the lacing action. Okay, so this is the condition in which you will be having this lacing action. So usually we will have one of the mirror fixed at 100% and the other mirror fixed at reflectivity less than 100%, because you need to have some of the laser beam coming out of the mirror. Okay, so this is the condition. Okay, so I hope you have understood the derivation. It's a very simple derivation. There's not much lot of number of steps. Only thing that you want to look at is for lacing action, the gain should be equal to the loss, and the round trip intensity should be same. Okay, fine. So I'll upload this lecture notes also along with the recorded video, and let me know if you have any questions. You can ask by unmuting your mic. Any questions? Okay, so then you can mark your attendance, you can mark present, and I think then we will continue in the next class. So I'll also share this video lecture with you. So if you have any doubts, you can look into it. Okay, fine. So if you have marked your attendance, I think let's wrap up this session. And thank you for listening. We'll meet on Monday.